Toilets, there are some immediately out of this door and in front of you. And we've got more if you go out of the door, turn right, head across the landing and just go to the top of the stairs. Fire procedures. We're not expecting any fire drills today, so if the alarm does go off, please leave the room here through this door, turn left and you'll see some stairs in the corner. Head down those stairs and head down the back of this building, down the road, back to the car park where you probably came in, and we'll gather there, okay? If you get any issues during today, raise those with a staff member who's with you, if you can, please. If they're not available, see another member of staff or somebody from the County Council. Okay. Right. Our theme today is homegrown talent. And the reason we chose that is we want to really emphasise that big things and exciting things can come from our local schools in Monmouthshire and from young people like you. We've got guest speakers to chat to you, and we're going to follow that with some workshops from Big Ideas Wales, where you'll be able to develop some ideas and products, campaigns, that kind of thing. Obviously running a little bit later than expected, but we'll break around 10:35, so we'll have a break then. Have lunch about 12:20, and we'll be looking to finish about 1:45, 2 o'clock. Okay. Two of our guests who are with us today went to schools in the county, one King Henry in Abergavenny and one in Chepstow, and both have gone on to set up successful businesses locally. Could you be the next person who does that? Okay, we're going to begin with a video which says a little bit about Global Entrepreneurship Week and what that's all about. If I can work the technology. Are you able to help me at all, Mike? Sorry. Thanks very much.
Just go to the bottom left there, James, there's a little play sign.
Right, thank you.
Can you see it? Just... Is it not working?
Not doing very well. There we go. Right.
There we are, to the bottom. Keep going. Bit more, bit more. Go on, next one. Hooray. Got it.
Thank you.
First test of the day.
I'm Jonathan Altman, and I'm with Global Entrepreneurship Week. Global Entrepreneurship Week is challenging to understand in some respects because it's 35,000 events happening at the same time in 125 different countries. Global Entrepreneurship Week offers you the opportunity to come and test your aptitude. Join a networking event. Come and meet a mentor. Come and experience a boot camp. Come and experience some other element of the startup community in your city, in your town, and learn about whether or not at some point in your life you may have the interest and the skill to be able to join a startup. And I think this has been effective in allowing people to feel that they're not only driving more of their fellow citizens to consider the path of entrepreneurship in their own countries, but they're learning and participating with people from other nations. It's really in the hearts and the minds of the individuals in each of these countries. There's a way that now we think entrepreneurs might be the force for change in their countries for things beyond just economic change, that they can actually make the world a better place. The field of entrepreneurship is no longer something of narrow commercial significance. It's something of more cultural consequence. It's something that represents the possibility of human endeavor for the benefit of all. The globalization of the startup communities actually gives the world a much better chance at solving some of the intractable challenges of the decades past. So in a sense, we see more citizens trying their hand at helping the world innovate its way out of its challenges. The world needs more entrepreneurs. It's a question of inspiring more people to recognize that it's more important to the future of their societies than they previously recognized. Global Entrepreneurship Week is an idea bigger than all of the communities that make it up, and it represents something that we can all aspire to, which is to be part of one global community of people ferreting out better ways of doing things and improving the lives of our citizens.
Right, there you go. I'd like to introduce to you now Kelly Byrne, our Chief Officer for Innovation and Enterprise at the County Council, who I'm sure is really going to get us thinking about what's happening in the world of work.
Okay, let's talk about the future of work. So, morning everybody. Are we all ready to participate and engage in quite a lively discussion and session this morning? Is that okay? Yeah? Want some participation, want to hear your voices and what you think. James has introduced me, so I won't go over that. But I also hold the role of Deputy Chief Executive within the Council. And one of the things that I get asked all of the time, because part of my role covers economic development, it covers enterprise, it covers things like entrepreneurship. And I've always considered myself as a bit of an entrepreneur. My dad, who's a bit of a wide boy, if I'm honest, when I was smaller, he always had nightclubs. That's what he did. He was a DJ. And every night around the dinner table, the quest was on to try and keep these things open, you know, to try and balance the books, to think about how we could make more money to keep these businesses going. He employed quite a lot of young people. He always had cool DJs coming in from different locations. So from a very, very early age, it was kind of embedded in me that if you want to do good things and you want to scale an impact and enable people to take advantage of all of the benefits in society, to have a good time, to have fun, you've got to think about ways of making the money work. You've got to think about ways of making the thing wash its face. And for me, in public service at this time, that's more important than ever, because the money that we get from the government to sustain our services is declining all of the time. And we've probably got two choices. We can say, right, okay, we'll start to close services, we'll start to cut back, we'll start to shut things. But in Monmouthshire, we don't want to do that. We want to apply innovation and different thinking, that sense of entrepreneurship that you heard about then on that video, to understanding how we can unlock some of the wealth that we need to keep some of the very important services that we run going. So entrepreneurship doesn't seem like it fits in a council setting, but it does. It absolutely does. And one of the questions I get asked all of the time is, okay, if you've got a choice between which services you're going to fund in the future, why would you fund economic development? What's that got to do with a council and what a council does? Well, everything, because the economy is our lifeblood, and the wealth that we generate in the economy actually helps to go back into government and pay for public services, schools, education, social care, all of those things that we receive and benefit from every day. So entrepreneurship, enterprise, economic development in a government context is absolutely critical. So a question I ask myself all of the time is, what do I want to be when I grow up? Because at the grand old age of 40, I don't feel like I'm anywhere near grown up. And I still think about what I want to do next and what's coming and what's attractive, what appeals to me. And when I was a little girl and I used to think about the future, you know, it was all about kind of flying cars, gleaming clean, sparkly cities that ran like clockwork. And I think, you know, when I look back now, it's that saying, isn't it? The future isn't what it used to be. And, you know, used to watch things like the Jetsons, and it was Star Trek and Flash Gordon, and it painted a picture of the kind of, back to the future that, really isn't what we're seeing today. And I think that's the point that I'm trying to make, really. I used to be in the thrall to my record player, to my mixtape. I remember the charts used to come on at 6 o'clock on a Sunday, and I used to tape on a little tape recorder the songs that I wanted to hear and repeat over and over again. And then my dad got us MTV, like we were the first house on the street to have MTV, and I was suspicious. I didn't believe the music would keep going, so I used to videotape that stuff. And at that point then, I could never have imagined having a mobile phone. I could never imagine when I was at university researching essays in books in a library what the internet could do for us all. I could never imagine giving up my record player and having an iPod, which is fairly out of date now, isn't it? And I remember doing my master's dissertation not so long ago on a word processor that had a tiny screen, a 25,000 word dissertation. So you can't imagine, can you? And I think the message is the future isn't a fixed point, it's a point of progress. And I think that's a really, really important thing for us all to keep in mind. And we're seeing every day, aren't we, that clever people, lots of young people in particular, are constantly developing new solutions to problems. And that's what's seen us advance as an economy, as a society, as a people. So every day we're finding new and better ways of doing things. So every day we're progressing and we're seeing that advancement all of the time. So technology, it's not just about devices, it's about products, it's about services, it's about processes, it's about the environment. So from things like robotics, and I'll talk about robots in a few minutes' time because it's my favourite subject, to genomics. Scientists now have developed ways of screening the human genome, our genetic code, so they can tell exactly what kind of impact the food we're eating will have on us, the kind of medicine that we need to take to prevent, not just cure, some of our illnesses and ailments. So there's things like cybersecurity. We all have mobile phones, we all have devices in the home, from baby monitors to smart TVs that, could all be hacked into. There's a cyber risk in every single environment. So cybersecurity is a massive industry of the future. Big data. Somebody said to me the other day, why aren't you on Facebook? And I said, because I don't want them having all my information. Well, it's free. Well, it may be free, and that's fine if you want to make that decision, but they are using your data and selling it on. So we've all got judgments to make, I think, in this new world. And I think some really important things as well around the kind of environments that increasingly we'll be living in. So I don't know how many of you have heard of the Internet of Things, but it's essentially an environment where everything is connected and everything, sort of talks to everything else. So if you see that little, see the little tide thing on the screen there, that's actually a device now that Amazon have produced, that you stick it inside your washing machine and it knows when you've run out of detergent, and it automatically activates the request for Amazon to send you a top-up of your detergent, probably by drone delivery, because they've now piloted that. But a service that I'm just looking at the moment, it's an app. If you don't feel very well, you can go online, you can get an instant diagnosis from a professionally trained doctor, and within hours they will ship to you, to your front door, the medicine that you need to take to make yourself better. So all of the time, these environments, these solutions, new ways of doing things are constantly being developed. So what is the future of work? And I think, I hear every day, the robots are coming, they're going to take all your jobs, that your bosses in the future are going to be robots, artificial intelligence is going to take over the world, we've all got to be really scared. But I think for every single scare-mongering comment, and we know the robots are coming, we know that at the moment, lots of the jobs that used to be done in a blue-collar context, are now automated, even white-collar jobs. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes' time. And the great thing about the robots is they never get tired, they don't answer you back, and they never get sick. So one of the companies that we work with, Airbus, so a big aerospace aviation company, increasingly now in their European production and manufacturing, they're robotised completely. That's what they use. They use robots to do all of the manual stuff that previously people did. But as I say, I don't think we need to be too worried, because all of the analysts and commentators say that for every job that goes, that is automated, new jobs will be created in the new industries and economies of the future. These things which are constantly being created and developed all of the time. And I think the question that we've all got to consider is, in thinking about the skills that we need in the future, are we aligning ourselves to be competitive for the new jobs and roles that will be created? And again, I saw the World Economic Forum was tweeting again this morning that 65% of children in primary schools will be working in jobs that haven't yet been created. 65%. So that figure's been increasing over a number of years. So that's just something for us to think about. How do we prepare ourselves for a world as yet unknown? How do we use foresight and the ability to predict things to find out what we should be doing now? So I think it is a little bit about getting the balance right. There we are. I'll show you that one in a minute. Okay, so I just wanted to talk a little bit about transport as an example, because I'm involved in a programme at the moment called the City Deal, which is a devolution deal with central government to bring lots of money and investment into our region here, because we are the poorest region in the UK, especially for jobs and growth and productivity. And so we're trying to stimulate the economy. And sometimes I get a little bit frustrated that I work in an environment where it's still about let's build new roads, let's build new infrastructure, when actually, do we need these things in the future? When you're thinking about autonomous vehicles, driverless cars, you know, Volvo now have, I don't know if you've seen them, convoy lorries on the motorway. You know, you've got one autonomous lead and the others follow. You know, the world is changing all of the time, so we've got to ask ourselves, are we investing in things that could be redundant in the next couple of years? And transport is a really good example. And we know that with young people in particular, always pursuing alternatives to car ownership. So you can even get an Uber cab in Monmouthshire these days, because Bristol, our neighbour, has Uber, so we're seeing a presence of Uber, of Lyft. Public transport, active travel, I'm sure, you don't want to spend, 2 hours a day on the M4 just trying to get to work. We've all got much better uses of our time. Driverless cars as well. We've seen the advent of those with Google and the work that Google has done to pilot that, to test it. Millions and millions of road miles clocked up now. But again, lower cost, much more convenient, so massive benefits. I read a really interesting fact the other day that says when we have autonomous vehicles, we'll avoid 1.3 million deaths every year on our roads. But one of the unforeseen consequences of that is the organs that we get in the UK donated mainly come through people that die in road traffic accidents. So what are we going to do when those organs are not available? Some bright sparks said we'll 3 and 4D print them, which is starting to happen, but probably not at the speed that we need to catch up if autonomous vehicles are going to take off in the timeframes that we expect. So 20 to 30 million injuries every year from road accidents will potentially be avoided. And obviously there will be reduced traffic. The Internet of Things will be able to tell us when the best time is to travel so we can avoid congestion, and we'll have smarter traffic light systems that will be able to guide and create flows of traffic in much more efficient ways. And of course, this new transport industry will create new jobs as well, different jobs. So for every lorry driver or taxi driver that we don't need, others will be created in terms of making the cars, making sure that they can run, making sure that they've got the appropriate regulation and those kinds of things tied around. But of course, the promise is balanced out with peril as well. And I've already talked about the issue around organ donation, but a massive threat to the insurance industry. So the guys at Admiral in Newport were telling me a few weeks ago that they do find the biggest risk to their future is going to be driverless cars, because people won't need insurance in the same ways. So what does it mean for that industry? If you're thinking about a career in that kind of a sector, is that a wise bet? We know about the kinds of jobs that will be lost, but 35% of jobs now can be done by artificial intelligence, which is quite a big figure. In the US, it's a much higher figure. So this is the environment that we're heading into. But again, it's not something we should be scared by. We just need to make sure that we're prepared for the other jobs and the other industries and the other economies that are going to be constantly created. Okay, does anybody know what this is? So the gentleman on the right is the world champion Go player. Have you ever heard of Go? So it's an ancient Chinese board game. I'm told it's a little bit like chess, a bit like drafts. And the thing about Go is it requires the highest levels of human intuition, because you can make as many moves and positions on a Go board as there are atoms in the universe. There's like billions of different permutations. Now, a company in London called DeepMind, again, I don't know if you guys have heard of DeepMind. They were a startup company in London that Google acquired about 3 years ago. And what DeepMind have done is they've created an algorithm that they believe is capable of winning the World Go Championships. So this is a picture of AlphaGo, Google's creation, playing the world champion Go player, and it won. So the algorithm, the machine, beat the human who was the expert, based on all those different billions of permutations. So, you know, there are really amazing things happening all of the time. And I think it's important that we keep engaged and we keep up to speed with all these transformational developments, because they really are changing and transforming the world of work. So, can we predict the future? Well, you know, as I've said, probably none of us can. You know, we can apply foresight, we can reasonably foresee that certain things will happen, but with any accuracy, I don't think any of us can really predict what's going to go on. I think all we can really do is to prepare for the future of work today, to start thinking about what that means for all of us. So I mentioned that statistic I heard about primary schools. This one applies to secondary school age children. So 40% of the jobs you will do have not yet been created yet as young people. So 100% of new jobs now are coming from companies that are less than 5 years old. So not the big giant corporations that we've all been used to, the smaller, nimble startups that have got solutions to some of the big wicked problems and issues that we're grappling with. So there's a prediction that says all production will be digitised in the next 5 years. Because anyone can produce now. You could have a 3D printer in your back bedroom and you know, you're in business. So we will see, with globalisation, increasingly we will see all of that digitised. The World Economic Forum reckons that 1.5 billion of us will be working remotely and agilely by 2060, so we won't even be travelling into work. Our homes, our environments will be our workplaces as well. So we've got to try and think about what that means, particularly in my role, building new houses. When I went to California a few years ago, I was amazed that lots of the young people I met, lots of the young people that were living and working around Silicon Valley, they actually were accommodated in what they call live-work accommodation. So, you know, your lives, your living is embedded within your work. And we all say, old-fashioned people like me, say work-life balance. And I've heard a lot of young people calling it work-life integration. You know, the two things become one. So I think the big question that we need to ask, especially in a school's context, especially in terms of the curriculum that we're delivering at the moment, is it enough in terms of giving us all of the skills, the opportunities, the capabilities that we need to engage and to benefit from this new world? This chart is a really nice one, actually. The World Economic Forum, which does a lot of the research on things like the future of work and economies of the future, have set out, you know, the difference in terms of the skills that were most highly desired in 2015 and the skills that will be most highly desired in 2020. And you can see, you know, there's a bit of a change, I think, in the top 5. Complex problem solving, so the thing that I've been talking about, solutions to problems, is the top talent, the top capability you can bring to an employer. And indeed, if you start your own business, you're already on that path because you've presumably got a solution to a problem, or you've got an opportunity that sees an opening in the marketplace. So critical thinking, the ability to think about very complex things, not simple things, and think about how we apply new answers. Creativity, because that's uniquely human. You know, robots can't really do creativity. They're programmed to do very technical things. So creativity is going to be a skill that we need to harness. And then obviously working with others. And then some of the softer skills. Again, you know, stuff which can't be automated. Emotional intelligence, interpersonal skills, the ability to really articulate yourselves well. So you can pitch, so you can sell yourselves. Really, really important skill sets for us to hone and develop. And I always think in my job, you know, I get to interview loads and loads of people, and I've interviewed the brightest, you know, Oxbridge graduates. But you know what, sometimes they're a little bit dull. And I think you hire for attitude and you can train for technical ability. Hire for attitude, train for technical ability. Attitude, mindset, interpersonal skills, I think, are the most important things. Anything else you can do and you can develop, but you can't, you know, you can't teach somebody to have a great attitude. So the fastest growing job titles on LinkedIn, and this goes back to 2014, so I expect they've changed again. But software development, Android development, Zumba instructor, the kind of niche market around that, social media, data scientist, data development, big data, and digital marketing. So, you know, no surprises there. We'd expect those to be some of the fastest growing industries and some of the highest paid as well. So let's test some of these theories out, shall we? Okay, so do you think that in this world that I'm talking about, this world that we're already starting to see, do you think the job of a dentist is at high, medium, or low risk of automation? What do you reckon? Well, the answer is actually low, but then I did read a couple of weeks ago that they've managed to do the first machine-led operation on the human eye. So again, you know, are dentists totally safe? I don't know. I'm sure there's going to be aspects that can be done without humans. What about an estate agent? Do you reckon estate agents are going to be needed in the future? What do you reckon? Yeah? Okay, what about a commercial pilot? This is an interesting one. High, medium or low risk of automation? Flying a plane? What do you reckon? Medium? Firefighter? Yeah? Getting good at this. An accountant. I love this one because I work with loads of accountants. Yeah. Oh yes. They're gone. Okay. Athletes. Low. Actors. Again, you know, uniquely sort of creative stuff, I think, is pretty much safe. And in fact, the UK government estimates that we're going to need 1 million more roles in the creative industry sector in the UK by 2020. So again, that's an area to think about in terms of career development. Don't become accountants, will you? Okay, so you are millennials, you are young people of this new era, and I think what we want to try and do is to think about the industries that are being built today, the industries that we're seeing develop around us very, very quickly. And I think you need to think about how you're going to be competitive for them. I'm in an ongoing sort of argument with my daughter, who's going to do her A-levels next year, and she wants to do an A-level in photography. And I'm like, no, you know, a machine can definitely do photography in the, you know, it's not a safe bet. I don't think it's something that we should be considering. So we've got to think about the new kinds of opportunities, I think, that are being created all of the time. And when I was in school, I think, even though my dad had his own businesses, I was always programmed to think that I would get a job, I would be somebody's employee. I don't think that's the case anymore. Monmouthshire is home to the highest number of startups in the whole of Wales. So new companies that have got solutions to problems that are starting up, they're spinning out, and they're growing at a rapid rate. And those companies that apply innovation and they're thinking about technology as a means of getting ahead, they're growing by nearly 100% in our county. So research and development and building that competency, again, is something really, really important. It's not just about sort of being multilingual in foreign languages. If you can acquire computer languages and if you can think a little bit about code and how machines work, a little bit perhaps of, engineering, thinking about sort of development works. Don't need to know it all, but again, really, really important. And when you look at the CEOs of companies, like Google and Facebook, they don't have massive technology backgrounds. They know a little bit about the technology, but they've got all of those other soft skills around leadership and interpersonal skills that I've spoken about. So some of the, those leading CEOs, those big individuals that we see on the news every day, Mark Zuckerberg and Eric Schmidt, they're not technical experts. They know a little bit, they know enough, but what they bring is the soft stuff, the ability to lead, develop, and ensure people can meet their full potential. And I think this stuff around behavioural psychology as well, I don't know if you've heard of like the nudge principles. And when we do a lot of work in government in particular, we do daft things, like we write letters to people. I don't even read letters that come through my door. I think if somebody wants to get hold of me, they'll text me, ring me, email me, I'll get something on WhatsApp or wherever. I just put the letters in the bin because everything comes digitally. But, as government, we still tell people about their council tax. And HMRC in particular, they were finding the tax office. They were sending threatening letters out to people saying, you haven't paid your tax bill, you're going to have an inspector knock on your door. They found other ways using behavioural psychology of having an impact on people. Instead of their letters being threatening, they said, well, everybody else has paid their tax bill in your environment. Do you know? If you don't, these are some of the things that might... They tried a different nudge approach. They applied those behavioural insights, which again, in terms of thinking about your careers and some of the areas you develop knowledge around, really, really important. So, some of the things that I'm involved in, I've mentioned the city deal for the Cardiff capital region, how we can grow the economy, how we can think about the types of new jobs that we need to create, not just building roads and the kind of things that we may not need in the next 5 years even. What are the kind of new industries and sectors that we need to bring to the region? And in doing that, again, we found that unsurprisingly, our skills base isn't where it needs to be. The kinds of skills that we're growing and cultivating are probably not where they need to be for the kinds of jobs and sectors and industries that would be created. So what I want to try and do is to make sure that enterprise and the economy meets education. We understand what we're preparing young people and millennials for. So you've got, decisions and choices about where your future career paths may take you. Something else that I'm doing, again, at the moment, and you might think, well, why am I talking about all of this stuff today? And Monmouthshire is a really interesting place because while we've got lots of new start businesses, we've got high rates of self-employment, what the demographic trends show is that in the future, we're going to have a massively ageing population. And at the same time as our ageing population grows, and we're going to have more people here aged over 85 than most places in the whole of the UK. So at the same time we grow our ageing population, our numbers of young people are declining. And we've got to start to think about what that means now. Is it because people can't afford to buy a house locally? When you think you've got to earn 11 times, on that sort of basic indicator to get a mortgage, house prices, that's tough, isn't it? How can young people afford to buy a home? Are we creating the right environments for things like business startups? Do we provide that infrastructure? Do we provide those opportunities to young people? So one of the things that I'm thinking about at the moment is what does a council of the future look like? So in this environment I describe of new jobs, new work, new processes, of technology, of innovation, what's the role of a council? What does that look like? And I think we need to start off with thinking about how we retain our young people, because I think that's going to be central to wealth creation and knowledge growth in the future. I think the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act, I don't know how many of you have heard about that, But Wales is the first country in the world to make looking forward and to thinking about our young people now and where we need them to be a statutory requirement, which is quite significant, isn't it? That gives us lots of opportunities. That gives us a platform to stand up and say, why are we building roads if those jobs are not going to be needed in the future? You know, why aren't we investing in knowledge growth and innovation and technology and some of the soft skills that we will really need to thrive as an economy in the future? You know, we've got some choices to make. And I think, you know, I know it's a Darwinian quote, but it definitely isn't about survival of the strongest. You know, in my job, in the jobs of my friends and family, it's always going to be about who can adapt to change, who can move the quickest, who can be the most flexible, who can embrace it, who can run with it. That adaptability, that resilience, that resourcefulness is really the watchword. And I was looking last night again at Netflix. So Netflix as a company have probably got the coolest way, I think, of recruiting and retaining their staff. And what they do is they don't put any rules in place. It's an environment and a company where everything works on trust. You don't have to tell them how many days annual leave you're taking, how many days in the work, how many hours in the working day you work. It's trust-based, which is some of what we try to do here in Monmouthshire. And they've got this mantra about hiring for attitude and training for skill. They want people, not with technical capability, but people who are hungry, interested, insatiably curious, people who can challenge, not toe the line and behave, but people who can ask the right searching questions, people who can add value. At interviews, they want people who can pitch really effectively, who can sell themselves, who can articulate why they will add value to that company. And most of all, they want people who are resourceful, who are not deterred by failure. And if I'm being very honest, one of the most difficult things about my job is because you're in the public sector and you're spending public money, you're investing public money, it's really, really hard to try new things because probably 97% of new things will fail. So our mantra here is to fail fast and forward. If we're going to try something new, we try it on a small scale, we test it, we prototype it till we know it can work. Because I think in this environment in particular, the biggest risk we can take is not trying at all, is failure by omission, is standing still. So all of the time, what I try to do as part of my role is to tell people if failure is okay, at least it means you're trying, which is the most important thing. And before I hand over to James, because James is the best person who can speak to you in terms of inspiring and encouraging you about setting up your own business, because James is an Abergavenny boy, you know, feels very passionately about this county, makes a real contribution now to this county and the wider region, in fact. But I was just thinking about resourcefulness and how we can't prepare for jobs that we don't know are going to be created, but we can prepare ourselves to be resourceful. And I think the more resourceful you are, the more likely as the next generation you are to not just engage in jobs of the future and to have jobs of the future, but like James, you will be the people who create those companies, those businesses, and those jobs of the future. So I know we've had a bit of fun this morning and we've been talking about robots and artificial intelligence and all of this stuff that sounds a long way off. But remember the Google Go example. It's not a long way off. Remember what I told you about Airbus? You know, these things are here now. And you've really got to start thinking about the skills, the competencies, the abilities that you can acquire to be competitive in this brave new world. So best of luck. I'm going to hand over to James now. I won't say much because I'm sure James will introduce himself, but James founded and now owns and runs his own PR, advertising, marketing company called Hello Starling. And we're very proud of him because, as I say, he's an Abergavenny boy.
Hello everyone. To me here. You good?
Okay.
So while we're just waiting for the presentation to be set up, Louise is going to hand out to you a post-it note and a pen. And what I'd like you all to do is write down something. It could be one word, it could be a question, a sentence, something that you would like to learn from today while I'm stood up here for the next sort of 20 minutes. So it might be that you want to, you might want to ask a particular question about, I don't know, you might want to ask, well, why do you do what you do? Or you might ask me, as lots of people do, what car do you drive? It seems to be a really, really common question. But you might also want to say, well, you know, how can I start a business? Or when should I start a business? Or when did you? You might want to ask those kind of questions. So think of a word, a phrase, a saying, a sentence, a question that you would like to have touched on today. So I've got a bit of a presentation for you, which is all about my journey. So I grew up and was schooled in Abergavenny at King Henry. Where are the King Henry people? Cool. Are you studying business studies? Any of you? No? I'm just trying to think of teachers that I was taught by that you might know. Yeah, I was schooled and grew up in Abergavenny. So, and I think it's great as a county. I think we've got not just a beautiful county in terms of the settings, but we also have a county that's really encouraging towards business. I think Monmouthshire as a whole is a very business-friendly county, and that shows. So what I wanted to do is talk really about my journey and how I've got to where I am today, and some of the things that I learned that, looking back over the last 8 years, the things that have helped me get to where not only I am today, but the things that I look back on and go, in hindsight, you know, these are real learnings, and I couldn't have done it without these things. So has everybody written something down? Because I want to have them here in front of me so that when I'm talking, I can try and personalise this presentation to each of you. There's also some prizes for the best question. I'll come around and collect as well.
Yeah, you're right. Do you want just to bang them down there? This might tend to be longer than you thought.
I know. Well, I've never done it before.
Oh, it could be a master plan.
Right, okay, so I've never done this before, so this will be hit and miss. So I'm going to answer some of them quickly before I start, because they're really easy to do. Is there anything that inspires you to work? Yeah, my love for what I do and the people I work with every day. That's what gets me out of bed in the morning, is the people I share my working day with. When did I start my business? 2008, so 8 years ago. Why do you do the job you do? A bit like the other one, the people, and I want to make a difference, not just to the people that we work with, but my colleagues as well. So, God, I'm knackered after doing that. I'm out of breath. The people that I work with every day have become a bit like family to me, and you'll see a really interesting slide in a bit that's quite colourful and entertaining with lots of, with a ginger family who sent a Christmas card out, which is really interesting.
Did you go to sixth?
Did I go to sixth form? So I started sixth form, and then my parents split up after I started sixth form. So I dropped out of sixth form. I went back in the September, and I started doing business studies, religious studies, general studies and psychology. And yeah, at the end of the year, I had to drop out. My mum couldn't afford to pay the mortgage on her own after my parents split up, so I had to get out of school and start a job. But I did go, after having a year out, I then studied an A-level in business studies through distance learning, which I got a B in. So I think it's always really difficult when you have to teach yourself and you don't have, a teacher sort of pointing at you and motivating you and encouraging you to do what you need to do. How did I decide what I wanted to be? I didn't. I think my career decided I was for it rather than the other way around. I sort of fell into it by accident and just found out that I was kind of good at it at the same time. What inspired me was not just to make a difference and to work with some great people, but also when you work in, as Kelly said earlier, I didn't work in public sector or in a local authority, but I have worked in some really big businesses, and I think sometimes the bigger the business, that comes with lots of red tape, and it's really difficult sometimes to make a decision that you believe is right for the business or for clients or the team that you work with, because they go, sorry, we don't do it that way. That's not how it's done in this company, and you have to follow a set of rules. Now, even though that could be really beneficial, sorry, the rule book says you can't do it. So kind of ripping up the rule book and just being able to make the rules up as I go along was a real inspiration. So I'm going to start my presentation because some of these will tie in quite nicely. So if any of you've got questions as we're going through, feel free to put your hand up. You will get a prize at the end, so get involved. So when people say to me, if I'm thinking about starting my own business, what do I need? And you kind of need that light bulb moment, really. It's all about having a big idea. And that big idea doesn't have to be unique. It doesn't have to be building a drone or a robot. Some of the most successful people in the world have built businesses off the back of being able to replicate another business idea, but they've just done it better, or they've spotted a gap in the market. And you kind of get brownie points for being that sort of either underdog or the number two. So a lot of you may have heard of the car rental company Eurocar. They've got these great TV adverts where, they're kind of like sort of confetti and banners and balloons going off just to celebrate how much they love their customers. But number two in the market is a company called Avis. And Avis have the strapline, "We try harder because we're number two." So I think sometimes you can replicate something and just make it better and build something bigger because you're the next one down. So you just need a big idea, and it just needs to be something that you can get excited about. But once you've got this big idea, you need to write it down. And the one thing that I think I didn't do enough of in the early days was writing it down, because when you get caught up in this wave of excitement, you're just like, there's so many ideas going around your head. You need to jot it all down, because it's only when you see it there in front of you that you can work out where your priorities are, what you need to be focusing on, and which bits can wait till later. I only started writing things down in the second year of having a business, and I wish I'd done it in year one, because I think I would have saved lots of time. But to Kelly's point earlier about making mistakes, I don't look back at that first year and say, well, I made mistakes, I wish I'd not done it. It is all about, the fall fast, fall forward, learn, try, And in our organisation as well, we're a bit like the council in that we do try to encourage people to make mistakes. And if they do make a mistake, you can't berate someone. You shouldn't tell somebody off for making a mistake, because that's the surefire way to stop somebody from trying or exploring again in the future. And that's really bad for business. We don't get anywhere if we don't keep moving on. So the other thing I wanted to focus on was being educated. And one of the points about sixth form is that whilst I didn't go through traditional sixth form schooling, and I didn't go on to I didn't go to university, and I haven't done any other formal education since, but I do like to educate myself on business and things that happen in the business world and in the industry that we operate within. So we're an advertising agency. I like to keep abreast of what the latest trends are, who's doing what, which brands are doing which, who's using the latest technology. So it's just about making sure that you're abreast and educated of what it is you're really interested in. And I'm not saying for 1 minute that you shouldn't go through traditional schooling, because some things you have to. If you want to be a GP, of course you've got to go through that academic route, but it doesn't mean that as a GP you couldn't be entrepreneurial. You know, you can still look to specialize in something or go on and work on developing new medicines and new technologies to help. So I think entrepreneurialism and enterprise is something that people can do when they're really sort of focused on the sector and the work that they're doing. And you need to mind the gap. So, excuse me, one of the things that people always say is you need to look for a gap, you need to look for a USP. But as I said earlier, a gap is fine. You need to be able to find a gap to where you fit in. But don't worry about it being, you know, unique or overly innovative. And innovation is a word that I believe gets overused a lot, or used in the wrong term in today's world. We use it because we think it's a bit of a buzzword and that it's going to solve all of our problems. And we're going to win awards for being innovative. And people are going to herald us as, you know, these great statesmen or these great entrepreneurs that came up with this amazing innovative idea. And we get briefs from clients who say, we'd like you to develop a campaign for us that's innovative. And you just say to them, well, why don't we just do what works? You know, there's nothing wrong with doing something that's safe if it works. So our sort of proposition about our sort of mind in the gap, where do we fit in, is that as a business we decided not to charge any retainers. Traditionally across our industry, agencies like ours would charge a client a fixed amount of money per month to work on a certain amount of work, irrelevant of how much work they did. So 1 month we could be snowed under with a stack of work for a client. Great, they've had value for money. The next month they may only give us 2 pieces of work, but they still have to pay the same amount of money because we're on the end of the phone if they need us. Well, I didn't see that as fair. How is that fair? You know, you keep all that money there just for the privilege of being on the end of the phone if the client needs you. Well, if somebody wants to spend money with us, I'm going to be at the end of the phone. So it doesn't matter whether you pay me the money every month or you pay me at different stages throughout the year, we'll be there. So just find your gap. If you're thinking about setting up a business or you're thinking about going into the world of work, just look for where you fit in. You know, don't worry about being sort of too out there. Just know yourself and find out where you fit in. Does anybody know who this guy is? I bet you've all got a product. It's Steve Jobs. So he said, your work is going to take up a good part of your life. And the only way to be truly satisfied is to do what you believe is great work. And the only way to do great work is to love what you do. And if you haven't found it yet, keep looking. Don't settle. And one of the things that I've learned over the last 8 years is that the day that I wake up in the morning and think I don't want to do this anymore, that's the day I would stop. Because it's not fair on me, it's not fair on our customers, it's not fair on the team that are around me. If I get bored, I will stop what I'm doing. And that's the thing. Kelly was talking about, 40% of the jobs that you guys will be doing in later life will be jobs that haven't even been created yet. So you don't have to settle. You don't have to follow the you know, oh, well, my dad was a solicitor and my granddad was it. You don't have to follow this sort of straight line. You can be whatever you want to be. But the thing that I take most from this quote from Steve Jobs is the only way to do great work is to love what you do. And I realized very quickly, actually by accident, that I love what I do. And I fell into it. I used to sell radio advertising for a radio station called Red Dragon. And it was when I left there after working for it was a really big organisation that owned that radio station. And I just got to the point where I thought, hang on, I don't love this anymore. This isn't on. There's so much red tape, so much internal politics and legislation. And just like, I could do without it, you know, let's just move on. So now I'm lucky that I love what I do. So you've got to ask yourself, will it work? But it's actually all right if it doesn't. But you don't really want to sort of hedge your bets too much. If you're convinced that it won't work, then I think it's a bit of a risky game to go into it. You've got to have a belief and a faith that you can go into it and it could work. And that's all I needed. I'll never forget the day I phoned my mum and said, Mum, I've resigned. She said, well, what are you going to do? I went, I don't know, but whatever I do, it will work because I will do something that I want to do as opposed to doing something somebody else is paying me to do. And I ended up getting into sort of conversations with people saying, well, what do you want from an advertising agency? What are the issues you've got with your current agency? And what are the ones that, you know, what are the things that you'd like to bin off? If you could create your sort of model agency, what would it look like? And everybody came back with this sort of feedback. I was like, hang on a second, this will clearly work. You know, so market research or just talking to friends, family, customers, people that you know, next door neighbours, it's all really important. Build up a really big picture to find out, are there enough people out there that want to buy what you're thinking of offering? And clients and customers are key. So this is the group of people that I learned from. So when I decided to resign from Red Dragon, I had a clause in my contract. It was called a caveat. And I wasn't allowed to go and work in direct competition to the radio station directly afterwards. It wasn't a caveat, it was a restrictive covenant. And I thought, well, I can go and talk to these people about what I'm thinking of doing. I'm not approaching them, I'm not asking them to spend any money with me, but these are the people that did spend money with me. So they bought from me, they bought the product that I was offering at the time. And you can get some really good insight from this group of people, because ultimately they could be your customers of tomorrow. You need to talk to your friends. Now, I'm always really wary of saying to people they should take advice about business or work from friends. But what you really need to do is talk to your friends and sound them out, because if you go on to set up your own business, it can be really lonely sometimes. It's late, you know, late into the night. Kevin will tell you. Late into the night, very early starts. It's actually really unsociable. Sometimes it can be one of the least thankful jobs in the world. You get no thanks for it, but you just need to know that when the chips are down, your mates have got your back. And they're going to either pop round with a pizza or a beer, or they're just going to take you out and take your mind off it and just sort of let you vent for a little bit. So friends are really important. And here's I still can't believe somebody sent this out as a family Christmas card. It's brilliant. But family is really important. Now, I know a lot of people who went on to set up their own businesses, and they did it because they said, my mum and dad said it would work. But most parents they believe that their kids can go on and do anything. And I think it's a beautiful trait. It's wonderful. But sometimes parents are the worst at telling you what you want to hear, because they don't want to look like they're unsupportive. So you'll either have a mum and dad who maybe they think you should both go for it, or you might have them that, you know, they might be torn down the middle. But I learned when my mum said, oh, that's not the right thing to do, it might not work, I just knew at that point, no more, stop listening to my mum. So we talked about research and your USP. So unique selling point, unique selling proposition. You really need to think about what is different to you. Where can you, I guess going back to your mind in the gap, where do I fit in? What can I offer that's different to somebody else? What's my differentiator? Could it be that you offer delivery by drone? Or could it be if you order online, we'll get it to you within the next hour? Or if you offer certain incentives that other people don't, just to give you that bit of a competitive edge. I'm quite lucky in that I own more than one business, and a year ago I took the decision that we had a client that approached us actually and said, we'd like you to work on our account. They were an e-commerce business, so they sold stuff online. And we'd never worked with anybody that sold stuff online, so we didn't know anything about it. So we did the pitch and we were really excited about it. And I was like, well, look, you know, we're all customers. We all know what we like, how we like to buy things. And we didn't get it. And when we asked for feedback, they said that the reason that we didn't get it was because we didn't offer anything unique. And apart from the fact that I was really sad about that, because I feel like we do have a unique selling point, we went off and I spoke to a colleague about it, and we decided we would set up an online retailer. So I funded the launch of an online retailer selling greetings cards. We've just sold our 1,000th card, which is, you know, no mean feat. But it means that when this pitch goes forward again in the future, we can say, actually, we do know exactly how to run an e-commerce business, because we went off and we did it. We learned from, you know, what the feedback that you gave us, and we went off and we tried it so that we can understand day in, day out the challenges and problems that you're facing. So we are best placed, because there's no other agency that they interviewed that owns an e-commerce business, and we do. So we're just constantly evolving our USP, and it's fine to keep changing your USP. Make it relevant to whoever you're talking to. So this goes back, USP. A while ago, Coke and Pepsi did, well, it was many years ago actually, they did blind taste tests, because they said, well, hang on, everybody knows Coke as Coke, and everybody says it's better. But they did blind taste testing, and actually they realised most people picked Pepsi and said, actually tastes nicer than Coke. But what they didn't realise was that it was Pepsi, so they were completely, when they didn't know and they were just going on what their taste buds told them, they liked it. So then Pepsi start looking into who are our audiences, who aren't we talking to, where are our advertising campaigns going wrong, why aren't we positioning ourselves right? Because people buy from a brand, so they were buying the lifestyle choice that Coca-Cola gave them, because they thought that's the cool brand to be associated with, and Pepsi wasn't seen as cool. So I guess the impression was then that the product didn't taste as nice, but it was only in blind testing. So just make sure that whatever your USP is, it's flexible. It doesn't have to be we are this. You can offer many different things, but pick and choose which bits of your USPs that you offer to different people you talk to. And then we had something that came along called Virgin Cola, who got it terribly wrong. Now, a lot of you in here won't remember Virgin Cola or the very famous Pammy bottle, but you probably won't remember Baywatch either. Anybody know the Hoff? I mean, no? Gosh, I feel really old. So there was a program on Saturday night tea time TV called Baywatch. It featured, well, it was all about lifeguards, and there was the character was played by Pamela Anderson, and she was well known for certain body parts. So Richard Branson, who owns Virgin, decided to contour a bottle to the shape of her body. So the top bit was larger than the narrower bit at the bottom. And what they did was they went in and they said, we've got this great product, it's cola, we've got this bottle, we think it's going to be cool and it's really going to sell. What they didn't estimate happening was that Coca-Cola, and this is a true story, when they found out that Virgin were paying supermarkets they were paying them to stock the cola. So a lot of you might probably think, oh, well, the supermarket picks who goes on which shelf and where, but they don't. You can pay to be in certain spots at certain times of the week, and you can pick where your product is situated. So Virgin went and paid the supermarkets all this money to get on the shelves. Coke sent, I think it was 4 aeroplanes full of executives from Coke's head office in America to visit all of the supermarket chains in the UK and outbid them on all the space. So they said, whatever Virgin is paying you, we'll better it. And within days, Virgin Cola was delisted. They were gone. So you just need to know, because they had no USP, there was no differentiator. The bottle wasn't enough, and sometimes money speaks, and Coke has got lots of it. And I think this is a great one for being, sometimes you can, as an entrepreneur, when you're on your journey and you feel like that kind of stuff has happened to you, you can feel out on your own, you can feel like I'm in the middle of nowhere, how the hell do I get out of it? And that, I love these pokes. They just make me smile, because they're looking really miserable, going, how am I going to get out of here? But you find a way, and you just have to keep going. And Richard Branson did, yes, he said, okay, no more Coke, no more Pammy bottles, that's fine. But he just chalks it up, and like Kelly was saying earlier, when you fail fast, you fail forward, you deal with it, you get on, you move on to the next thing, you find a way out of it. And it's all about making it happen. Ultimately, you are responsible for making it happen. So one of the things that I said earlier was about, I wish I'd written things down. There's a couple of things that I documented throughout my first year. One, I underestimated the importance of finances. So in our first year, we turned over £250,000. So to somebody that had come from earning 40-something thousand pounds a year to turning over £250,000 in the first 6 months, but it was in a financial year, you think that's amazing. And then you realise that you've got to do stuff with that money. So you've got to pay taxes, you've got to pay fees, you've got to pay advisors, solicitors, accountants to do all of these things for you. And I hadn't really appreciated, one, how expensive they are, and two, how many things you can be taxed or charged for. So definitely keep a track on it from the numbers. The legal side of it, when you start working with a client, sometimes you can get so excited you forget to do the due diligence. You forget to put a contract in place that says you will pay us within so many days. And this is what happens if you don't pay us within so many days, because a contract is really important. You hope never to need to fall back onto it. But if it's not there, you're a bit screwed, really. So this is something I learned really on with a couple of mistakes where people said, no, I'm going to pay you in 90 days' time. And you're like, I can't wait 3 months for you to pay us. I need the money now. We're a young, fledgling business. So get contracts sorted. That's really important. And one of the things that I talk about all the time is a great team. And it's what inspires me and motivates me to get up and go to work every morning. This is David Gilboa, and he runs a company in America called Warby Parker. They sell spectacles and monocles, and they're actually really cool. He says it's better to have an a-hole than an a-hole. And we've taken that mantra into the business, actually. We recruit a lot, and when we interview people, we always end up going, well, we really need somebody. I need them now. We've got work they could be doing. But we've learnt over the years that if you recruit the wrong person, not only is it expensive and it's hard work to deal with it, but it demotivates all of the other people that are in your team. They say a bad apple can spoil everything else. But I like this quote because, we would never say you're an a-hole in the office, but we're thinking it when we interview people, you're really not for us. So you're open for business. You've set up, you've got all of this stuff sorted, you've got your contracts in place, your finances, you've got your friends, your family, your team around you, and you're open. And what should you know about that? Well, it's lots of long hours, and I think I became addicted to coffee. I didn't go out anywhere. I set up my business from my dining room table. And people say that it's really difficult to work from home. I can tell you now, it's not difficult to work from home. The hardest thing about working from home is switching off. You never switch off. People say to you, oh, I bet you've got Jeremy Kyle on or Loose Women. And you go, no, I haven't. I've got too much to do. So you're back and forth to the kettle, topping up your drinks. But when you work at home, and Kelly was talking earlier about how it's not work-life balance, work-life integration. When you start out, it can very much feel like work-life integration. My home became my office became my home, and I had nothing else to do. I ended up getting an office about 6 months in, And I kid you not, I worked that late one night that I slept there overnight because I just thought, well, there's no point going home because by the time I wake up, I'm going to have to come back anyway. So I did sleep the night. So I think it's really important to have a work-life balance. You need to be able to shut the door and have some you time to just download everything you've taken in on that day. And that's why school is great. You go to school, you go to that building, you leave, you've got, you're out of it until, I guess, homework. No one likes that. But remember the underdog mentality. So just remember that the little guy very often wins because they're nimble, they're agile, they can move quicker, they're more flexible. And it's the one thing that I learned the quickest, actually, is that once I left a really large organisation where I had to follow their rule books, when you start out and there is no rule book and you can make the rules up as you go along, that's really fun. That's really cool. And the great thing about that is clients love it. So if the client says, I need this to happen, but it can only happen if you can let me do this. And you go, well, of course, it's fine. Whereas I wasn't able to do that in my last job. So being the underdog is a great place to be. Remember your reason why, because sometimes the chips are down. I mean, I'd be lying to you if I said that in the last 8 years I haven't had this sort of crisis of confidence where I thought, am I doing the right thing? Where I haven't had nights where I've genuinely wanted to cry, or I've been on the phone to my mum going like, help, and you just want somebody to give you a hug and tell you it's all going to be all right. But it's only when you remember the reason why that it perks you back up again. And if you go into running your own business without a reason why, a clear passion and a reason why, it's not going to be easy when the chips are down and you're having a rough ride. And I'm coming to the end now, but talking about ride, it's a roller coaster. But it's the best roller coaster I've ever been on. And I mean, I brick myself when I think about going on Megaphobia in Oakwood and stuff like that. But I'm somebody that can't even go on the waltzers in the fair. But starting a business and running a business is the biggest roller coaster you will ever have. It's got the best highs where it's better than anything you've ever done. I mean, I've been drunk many times, and riding the business roller coaster is one of the best rides I've ever had. But I can tell you, when you get to the top and you feel that you're coming down, it's really scary. So you've just got to hold on tight and go back to what I said earlier, which was remember your reason why. Just remember why you're doing it, and it'll help with that ride. And then you get loads of fun stuff when you run your own business. You can get to do stuff like this. I mean, this is a larger me on the right-hand side. But this is a couple of years ago. Our Christmas party, we always do something really fun. And that's one of the benefits of owning and running your own business. You can do really fun stuff. So I was able to take my whole team and their other halves to London. We went, we had lunch, we checked into a hotel, we got taxis to the O2, and we went and met will.i.am in his dressing room. We had drinks with him. We went to his concert afterwards. These are all the really fun, cool things that you get to do, the things that I'll always remember. And some of us thought, I won't be that good, because he was good when he was in the Black Eyed Peas, but, other than that, it was amazing. The best time I've ever had meeting him, and they're the fun things that you can do. And this is my parting slide to you, is have fun, because it's a great journey. You don't know when it's going to end. Who knows? A robot may take my job at some point in the future. But I mean, I'm lucky that I work in the creative industry sector, so I think we're seen to be all right. But just have fun. Life is too short, and a lot of my friends have got into the rut of getting a job. And when I talk to them now, and they've been doing their jobs for 15 years, and I say, well, why haven't you moved on? Well, it's safe, I'm married, I've got kids. You go, right, okay, but you're not happy. And every day you're not happy. And that's rubbing off onto your family around you and your kids. And it's just, so my best friend recently decided to jack in his job and retrain as an electrician. He said it gives him more time with his family. He gets paid more. He's more flexible on when he can go to and from work. He makes his own rules up. He gets to meet more a variety of people, and he's his own boss, and he loves that. So he's having fun, and he's going through that roller coaster ride, but he's having fun, and that's the best thing about being an entrepreneur or being enterprising in something that you do every day. Thank you. Are there any questions? Because I think I've got a couple. Okay, some of these I've covered off. How confident when I started my business that it would work? I was relatively confident. I had confidence in myself and my ability to make friends, talk to the right people, and make things happen. So I wasn't really nervous about it. And I think I'd given myself a period of time as well and said, right, give yourself 6 months. If it doesn't work, you tried it, you gave it a shot. Don't be afraid then, you know, to knock it on the head and say, that's it, it's over. How do I prepare for all the change in the economy? Well, that's a really good question. And if you've got the answer, then let me know. But I think that the only thing you can prepare for is that there will be change. And sometimes preparing for change is really difficult because you don't ever know what's going to actually happen. So I think sometimes the best thing to do, keep your head down, work hard, keep doing what you're doing, and look at things. Be the kind of business that's proactive, is forward-looking, outward-looking, and can see what's happening, and then be a business that's really agile and reactive when it needs to be. But just keep your head down, work hard. I think the current state of the economy, we're not really going to know what's going to happen at any time soon, and it'll take many years for us to all find out what that looks like. So for now, yeah, I'm keeping my head down. Done that one. I want to make sure I try and... some of these are duplicates. How do you advise a business which starts off quite low? Who wrote that one? What do you mean? Is that a small business? Pardon? Oh, there are lots and lots of different ways. That could be like a workshop on its own. But I think what you need to do is surround yourself with really good people. And because you could go to a networking event, you could have open up your mind and your network to lots of different people and create lots of delegated ambassadors that will go out and help sell your business for you so that referrals come to you rather than you having to do the legwork and looking for it. So yeah, get people on side and your business will grow that way. Last couple. I've done that one. Done that one. Some really good ones here. What did I study in school? Well, for my GCSEs, I did religious studies, business studies, Spanish. God, such a long time ago since I went to school.
English?
Yeah, English, biology, you know, sciences and that kind of stuff. So I did the sort of usual blend. But it's really funny. I'll never forget going to a careers advisor where you know where you sort of tell them everything that you'd like to do in the future or what interests you, and then they type it into a computer. He gives a printout saying this is what you should be. Maybe a bit more sophisticated than that, but they told me I'd be a vicar. So I'll never forget that story. Yeah, and I went home and they were like, "You'll be a minister or a chap." Yeah, okay, fine. Okay, has technology played a part in what we do? Yes, it has. More so in recent times. A lot of what we do now when we talk about digital advertising, that's definitely made a difference. A lot of what we do now is automated. So you just you type in your criteria and automatically your ads start, finish. They deliver the right message to the right people at the right time. We can track when you buy something, how you buy it, how often you buy it, what else you buy. We can find out so much about you just from recent technology. And I think that only, as an advertising agency, that only enables us to serve our clients better. We're delivering the right messages to the right people. I'll do the last two. Is technology the way forward? I think there's no getting away from it. I think, as Kelly said, the future is a point. It's just a point in time now from where we are. It'll just keep moving. Technology is here, and it will be here for a really long time. How do I think my business might change the game? Well, I think it already has. But moving forward, we're having those conversations at the moment internally about how do we make sure that we're fit for the future, what our clients of tomorrow looking for and asking for, because we've had a great run for 8 years, but we can't sit on our laurels. We need to change, because the next wave of marketing managers and marketing directors are coming through, and they're asking different questions of us, and they want to work in different ways, because their businesses, their customers are expecting the same of them. So yeah, it's something that we need to work on at the moment. Are there any questions? Thank you. I've got so I've got all you.
Freebies, we have freebies. Is it chocolate? No. Can I just say, James gives out freebies. If we have a quick 5 minutes sort of comfort break, there are some drinks and snacks out on the landing for you. And then can you come back in here within about 5-10 minutes when we get started on the next one? Okay? Thank you.
I hate you.
So they're going to have a quick break. The next guys coming in then. Yeah, Kevin and George Sabo? No, I haven't come across them before. So they're coming then to do a workshop. They were going to split, but actually Kevin's stuck on time, so we're going to keep them in here for the next bit then. Yeah. But thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. Yeah, so we're having lunch downstairs in the conference room. So yeah, as I say, that is planned for 12:15. And we should be fairly spot on for that. Okay? But yeah, it'd be great if you popped down. Plenty of lunch to get stuck into.